So, a lot of people ask me about the background gigs. How did I get the opportunity to sing with Roberta Flack? How did I have the opportunity to sing with Chaka Khan? And so, several of the other people that I have worked with. I started off actually singing with Roberta. My friend Howard King, who was actually my ex husband's best friend in New York, had been working with her for a very long time. And he called me one day when I was actually about to take my midterm or final exams at Peabody. I was still studying classical music, but I was still sort of singing jazz and singing R&B. I was always singing several different kinds of music, and I wanted to do some work in New York. And I told him at different times that I really wanted um, to do some background work for artists in New York, and certainly if he knew of anyone who had a need for a singer, that I would like to do that. So anyway, he called me out of the blue, and he asked me. He said, "Can you be?" I was living in Baltimore, and he said, "Can you be in New York tomorrow?" And of course, I said yes without hesitation. And then I had to think about, okay, how am I going to um, not be there for my for my final exams or whatever. So I had to talk to my professors and ask them if I could take the exam the next week, which I did. But I then I headed to New York that next day and basically learned her show overnight. And maybe it wasn't overnight because I had been studying her music for years, just listening to every background part, just because I loved the music so much. And I could sing all of the parts, soprano, alto, tenor, whatever. I just, loved harmony, would always harmonize with her singers on the CDs or the recordings, the albums at the time. And then I was also in local groups that performed her music. So anyway, I learned her show overnight, and she was impressed with the fact that I had learned the material so quickly. And then she asked me if I wanted to. I did a gig with her in Connecticut, I think. Yeah. And then she asked me, oh, yeah, and on that gig, I remember it being Sunday, the first gig, and she knew that I also sang gospel. So a lot of the singers from New York had come up to Connecticut to see her show, and like it was the background singer crew of New York that came up to check out the show. And she decided to do Amazing Grace. So they basically did a round robin and gave all of this each singer a solo on the song, and they got around to me. They gave me the mic, and I just did my thing. I'm a church girl at heart. And she was like, "Wow, man, you really you really sang that song." And so she said, if you'd like to be a part of my group, if you'd like to continue singing background for me, you have a job. And of course I agreed and was very, very excited. And the next month, I found myself in Japan with her, opening for Miles Davis. I mean, so it was really an incredible whirlwind, and I stayed with her for several years and worked with so many artists. Al Jarreau, we did shows where we were co-billed with Al Jarreau, and I sang with him in the process of working with her and several other artists. And while I was on her gig, also one of the percussionists, actually the great percussionist Don Elias, asked me if I would be interested in meeting a producer in New York, and his name was Wayne Brathwaite. He was doing a lot of producing at the time, Billy Ocean's biggest hits and so forth. And he was writing, and he needed somebody to finish his songs. So I was writing at the time, and he gave me some songs. Once again, it was sort of like a one-day deal. He gave me the songs, and I was on my way back to Baltimore. And by the time I got back on the train, I had finished basically two songs, called him at midnight and said, "Hey, check this out." It was a really, really great song. And one of the songs was You Can Make the Story Right, which happened to wind up being a hit for Chaka Khan. And Wayne took it to her somewhere along the way, played it for her at a club, and she really liked it. And she put it on the CD, but I had not met her. So then I go to her rehearsal shortly after the album The Woman I Am was released. and she said, the song is going to be the second single on the album, and I must not have reacted because I think I was in shock with the whole thing. I'm like, oh my God, Chaka Khan. So anyway, so she shook me and said, "Did you hear what I just said?" And so then they started singing, and they were missing a soprano, and I started singing along and filling in the top part, and she looked at me and she was like, "What are you doing tomorrow?" And I said, "Well, I'm not doing anything tomorrow. The day after tomorrow, I'm going to be singing with Roberta Flack in Virginia or something like that." And Chaka said, "Well, we're going to be in Milwaukee tomorrow. If we fly you to Roberta Flack's gig the day after, can you do this tour with us? I mean, this gig with us tomorrow?" I said, "Absolutely." So that went on back and forth working with them, and it was quite a wonderful experience going back and forth between those two artists, because they have different styles to Roberta Flack's background style, sort of breathy, ooh, ah, that kind of thing, and Chaka's is very much in your face, ah, those kinds of sort of aggressive background vocal sounds with riffs and everything. So it was really great to sort of go back and forth with those particular artists who had very different styles. Lots and lots of fun. Good stuff.